Hi. In this video, we're going to make this picture right here using generative for Figma. Let's start by, as usual, deleting everything. So we're going to start by making a circle. We're going to set it to center so that the width and the height specify the radius. We're going to give it a color. I have a random color prepared. Not the best random color, so let me randomize it a little bit. There we go. Set some inner value and set a sweep. So this is our basic unit for building the circles. First I'm going to make one broken circle, then I'll multiply them, and then I'll reduce them to a quadrant, and then I'll multiply the quadrants. So let's make a circle. The way we do that is we have to create a set of random values and then divide those by the sum of those random values to get a proportional value, which we'll then use to make these arcs. And the reason for that is if we first prepare the values, then all of the arcs will exactly comprise a circle. So let's make some random values. And it doesn't matter what the values are, like the ranges, as long as the minimum is not too small, because they will all be divided by the sum. So it's all relative. So we're going to say repeat. Then I'm going to cache it just to make sure that they don't change. And then I'm going to select from list. So this is going to be me choosing the value. Then I'm going to get a sum of this using the math node, the complex math node. So I'm going to hold Control Alt, get this sum. And now I'm going to add a math node to divide them. So math, like this, and I set divide. Now this gives us a normalized value from 0 to 1, because I'm dividing by the sum. So I need to multiply this by 100. By using a simple math node. So I'm going to say multiply 100. And then I can plug this into the sweep. And that's in percent. Since the start is in degrees and the sweep is in percent, I prefer to use the sweep in degrees as well. In Generator, you do that by right-clicking and saying absolute. And then here, I need to multiply not by 100, but by 360. For now, at least. So this gives me my arc. If I want to complete the circle, what I have to do is I need to say repeat. I need to repeat it exactly the same number of times as the number of sections I created when I made the random numbers. So, like this. Now we have the 5 sections, but they're all in the same place. The way to fix that is to use an accumulate node in the after mode, and then run this value into the start. Not this value, but this value. So the multiplied angle will go into the accumulator, and that will then go into the start angle. And so then each successive arc will start after the previous one. Except it seems like there are too few of them. That's because we're not using a sequence to run through them, and they all have the same size. So I need to take my sequence, run it into the index, add 1 every time because it's an indexing sequence. And just for clarity, I'm going to lock it to the loop like this. Not lock it, but loop it visibly. So this is my ring. And there you go. All the pieces fit nicely into a full circle. When we later want to make just a quadrant, we say that we put 90 here, and then it fits exactly into a quadrant. I'll leave it at 360 for now. And I will increase the count here. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to make some rings. For that, I'm going to make the inner absolute as well, so that it's in pixels, not in percent. I'm going to use a sequence which will feed the inner value, and then for the radii, I'm going to run this sequence through a math node. So I'm going to add to the sequence this value, because that's the width of the ring, in effect. And then this is going to go into the width There we go. And the height. And I need to lock this or loop this sequence to the repeat, which I then attach over here to make the rings. So right now, as you can see, each new arc receives a new radius or gets the new step, so it's basically a spiral. But if I loop this to the second repeat, I get my rings. Although it is starting to look like the randoms are the same for all the rings. So I think I need to also run this cache, because that's where the randoms stop, to... So I need to use a combine node. I will run the cache to a combine node. I will then bring this combine node over here, plug the sequence into it, and then just replug the output of the combine back into the repeat, like so. There you go. So now we still have the rings, but each ring has different randomness, which is what I want. I don't want these really super thin sliver arcs, so I'm going to say that the minimum is 50. Again, it doesn't matter what the values are as long as the minimum is not too small, because they all get divided by the sum and so become proportionally correct. This seems like there are too many over here and too few over here. So I think I'm going to... So this is where I create my values. I think I'm going to use a sequence. I'm going to start with maybe 4 and add 1 every time to not get too carried away. And then I'll plug that into here, into the count. That is looking correct. I just need to plug this into the same combine, like so. And also this is more correct because we're starting at 4 and adding 1 every time, which is kind of what we want. And now we can play with these numbers to make sure that it looks appealing. So let's start with 10. Now I'm going to start with 6. And maybe add 2 every time. I just kind of want them to feel like they're the same size everywhere. There we go. And all right, so I think it's time to put this into a frame. The graph is not too bad right now. So let's make a frame. Make it absolute. Minus 150 minus 100, and then width will be 300 and the height will be 200. The background will be black. And I'm going to plug this into the objects and just double click on the frame so that that's all we see. There we go. I think I can hide the UI to just see the result. That's nicer. And maybe increase the number of rings. Let me try 10 rings to see how slow this gets. 200 objects. I guess that's not too bad. To fill all of them, so that's 10. I'd need about 20. Ooh. Let's try it, but this is going to be like 600 objects or something. Not 200, 20. Whoa. Yeah, that would have been way too much. $700 objects. I was almost correct. I wasn't too, yeah, all right. That's pretty nice. Let me try 18. Here we see that everything is aligned at 0 degrees. This can be avoided by randomly rotating each of the rings, but we don't care because we're gonna have the 4 quadrants and we actually want those lines. So since we want 4 quadrants, let's reduce the number now. I'm going to reduce it to 3 to start with. Wait, 6, 2 to start with. And add 2 every time. Something like that. So that's better, but I mean, how many objects can I squeeze? I think I should start at 1 and then add 2 every time. Yeah. That's still way too many because this is 325. I can't multiply that by 4, that's way too expensive. So I'm gonna add 1 every time. $172, that's way better. So start with 1, add 1 every time. And now I need to reduce the spread. And so it's, instead of 360, it's gonna become 90 to make just 1 quadrant. And then we'll multiply that by 4. Yes, but not exactly. So it's jumping in radius every time I get a new quadrant. That's because I'm not resetting the accumulate node. So I need to reset it at the end of the loop. So I'm going to use a combine node like so. Like this. Plug this back in here. And then bring the accumulate into this combine. So I loop it with the inner loop. Yeah, so now I have a quadrant of arcs. Now I can repeat this 4 times. Repeat. It's going to repeat it 5 times by default. And we have to wait until it finishes calculating. All right, so I'm going to set it to 4 as fast as I can. So we don't do any extra, yeah, because it's almost 900 objects now. Well, this isn't Blender. All right. Also, because apparently it's showing it to me twice. So I want to... So I will set this to 4. And I will plug it into the frame. And then I will double click only the frame. So now I have 4 quadrants that are in the same place. What I need to do is I need to get a sequence, start with 0 and add 90 every time. And then the output of the sequence, I need to add to the starting angle for everything somewhere. And the starting angle is determined by start right here, which comes out of the accumulate. So that's what I need to add it to. So I'm going to get a math node, maybe the complex one. Already add this to here. Add, where's my new sequence? This to here. And this will become my start value for all of them. Also, I'm going to loop this sequence to the last repeat. And then just wait to see what happens. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. I have the 4 lines that are dividing the picture. The only thing is this is way too slow, at least on my computer. So I want to reduce the number of rings. And I do that. Let me color these. I'm going to color the ring one with green, and I'm going to say that I want only 5 rings. That's 61 objects. That's a lot faster. So what I would like to do is I would like to have the center be brighter and then the periphery be darker, and then the hue will be randomly chosen for all four. So now this is the rings and the radius of the rings is, okay, so the color is here. So basically now this is my color. First, I want to do brightness. So I'm going to use a sequence, which I will feed into the color. And I will loop it with this repeat. Not the outermost, because that gives the quadrants, but the second one. So now the brightness is per ring, let's say. Except it's backwards. I want it to start at 100 and go like -5 every time. So something like that, maybe -9, 8, whatever. Okay. And maybe even more. Yeah. And then I also want to randomize, I'll randomize the brightness later. First, let's get the colors correct. So the saturation will stay whatever it is. And the hue is now going to be looped to the outermost loop, which determines the quadrants. So I'm going to combine the quadrant index and the hue random. And then plug that into the last repeat. Like so. That's what I want, just maybe not these colors. So let me use a noise. I will say 360 for now, then we'll adjust it. So this goes into the hue, like so. And it gets looped. All right. And now we just need to add a bunch of smaller superficial noise to all of this. So this, let me set the scale at 10, for example, so they're all kind of similar, and then we can randomize it later and get some interesting results. Maybe not 10, maybe 5, something like that. And I don't want green. So what I want to do is set this from like 240 to 45. So I'm looking more for like the sunset colors, but yeah, this is a bit better. Still, the scale is too high, so I'll set it to 3. I want them more variable. All right, that's better. Okay, and now to this, I want to add some noise as well. Math plus, and then I will run this into the hue instead of this one. But this secondary noise, I don't want to be so strong, so it'll be from like -5 to 5. So just a little bit of hue noise, just so the hue is not the same everywhere. So here it's starting to get broken up, maybe -10 to 10. That's a little better. And then I also want to do the same thing for saturation and brightness. So this is going to be brightness, I guess. I'm going to bring a noise like this in. I'm going to math them together. And I'm going to plug this into the lightness. The last thing I want to do is use a noise for their saturation, because there's nothing else coming in. And I will say that the saturation will be between 70 and 100, because I want it pretty saturated. And these are just free hanging noise nodes because I don't really care. They're adding noise. I don't want to loop them or anything like that. So this is starting to look like what I want. Let me randomize things a little bit to see what I can have. Maybe this final brightness shouldn't start at 100. Let me see. So it's good. It was a sequence that I started the brightness for. Where's the brightness? There it is. Let me make it white to symbolize brightness, like so. Let me start at 95. I guess that's a bit better. So now let's increase the number of rings to see what it looks like. At this point, it becomes an exercise of just playing with noise scales and seeing what we can get. So the brightness shouldn't go down as quickly at this point. I'm guessing I'm going to make it like -5 or something at the end, so I might as well start now. No, not -5, -7. And let me increase the number of rings back to 18. Okay, so I like this a lot. The only thing is maybe the corner's a little too dark, so I need to reduce the brightness not as quickly. Let me try -6. And even though it's a difference of 1, it's 1 for every ring, so that's going to be a significant difference. All right, so I like this. Also notice that updating the existing objects is faster than creating new objects, which means that now that we have this, I can run through some variations by Shift-Ring. I think I'm going to switch to manual. So I need 4 values. They're going to be, like, I'm going to put them off the top of my head at first, and then we'll just adjust them. So like 300, 320, 15, and 25. I will combine them with an iterate node because I want to go through them one after the other. And then I will plug them into this math node. I can disconnect this. I can even delete it. I can also delete this, but I need to loop the iterate to the same place. So let me move the iterate over here. Plug it in like so, and just double click on my frame to make sure that's all I get. All right, so at this point, there's no randomness and the quadrant hues are determined by me. And so now I can just adjust them to get the result I want. I tried randomness, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it didn't, but you can always do it by hand. Okay. So this will become 200. See what color that gives me. I guess I want some oranges maybe on the bottom and some blues at the top. So let's see what 200 gives me. All right, so I'm guessing a little bit more to the right. So just off the top of my head, I'm gonna change these. And they're going to become, so 25 is too yellow. So I'm gonna make it 5, 15, 270, 230, something like that. So maybe 330. do 260, and here I'm going to put 20 to make it a bit more yellow. Maybe 290. All right, so I think I'm going to stop here. This looks pretty good to me. As always, if you like what I'm doing, if you find Generator useful and you'd like to support my work, the best way to do that is to buy a Generator subscription. I'm working really hard. Look at the bags under my eyes, and your subscription will help me keep making all the cool stuff that I'm making. Thanks for watching.